Yes, very good morning. Welcome everyone to this policy meeting. We are delighted to hold a discussion on the many phases of migrant smuggling. The Migration Policy Center of the European University Institute is organizing this event where we will be presenting a number of research findings and projects. And this event is held in cooperation with CEPS, the Center for European Policy Studies. And we hope with this policy meeting, we hope to contribute to a better understanding of and critical understanding of EU anti-smuggling policies, which are based on a number of assumptions and premises. And it is the role of social sciences research to inform and to raise, perhaps reframe some of the preliminary questions upon which these policies are founded. And today we will be discussing and presenting two projects, the results of two projects. The first one is, actually you have the flyer distributed in the entrance, is the special journal issue in the Annals, the American Academy of Political and Social Sciences, that my colleague Gabriella and other researchers have co-edited, and is titled Migrant Smuggling as a Collective Strategy and Insurance Policy. I highly recommend this publication for you to read it. It presents fascinating research. And also, we will be talking about the results also of another project, where CEPS and Queen Mary University London have been working on for about 2 years on policing humanitarianism, so the impact of anti-smuggling policies on civil society and NGOs. So among the questions that we will be tackling today is, who are those smugglers? Who are those smugglers that policies are aimed at targeting? And what is their relationship with the people who are actually benefiting or using their services? The EU has paid particular attention. It's been one of the key policy priorities, anti-smuggling, in response to the so-called European humanitarian crisis. And there's been a lot of debate on the EU's facilitators package. CEPS issued an in-depth report already 2 years ago, highlighting a number of dilemmas about the implementation of this package and the uncertainty that the provisions envisaged in this facilitators package leave civil society and NGOs with on the ground, as regards what is and what is not criminalized precisely. But we've also seen European Union agencies like Frontex, Europol, Eurojust, also having as their priority anti-smuggling at the top of their political priorities, and even the military also seem to be still fighting the smuggling model in the Mediterranean, the EUNAVFOR Med operation. Now, something that we wanted to address in today's meeting, together with Gabriella also, we thought this about the link between anti-smuggling policies and migration management. Can we see or can we understand my anti-smuggling policies as a migration management tool? And should anti-EU smuggling or anti-smuggling policies be framed in such a way? This is an area where we do have a wealth of international standards. The United Nations has provided us with very useful instruments who tell us also who should not be a smuggler. In particular, exemptions for civil society and family members and friends should not be criminalized when assisting people. But still, we are seeing examples of formal criminalization of civil society and NGOs across Europe. We will talk about some of these examples today. We've seen in the news in Italy, a case in point, search and rescue in the Mediterranean. The case of Proactiva is still open and leading to a number of very sensitive discussions, and even academics writing a common letter basically denouncing the current politics in Italy about the criminalization of NGOs and civil society. and asking to bring this issue to the UN for it to stop. But we've also, and we will talk about it today as well, we've also identified other forms of criminalization that we talk about policing, rather. Policing humanitarian assistance, other manifestations and pressures that NGOs and civil society are exposed to when doing their work, when providing assistance to those in need. So these are issues of major importance, and we will hope to find some, and to share with you some of those findings. By the way, we are being web streamed, so in addition to everyone who is here, we are going global. So we also say hi to everyone who is watching. It's really a pleasure to share these discussions and to have this possibility of web streaming so that this becomes more democratic as well, this discussion. Gabriella. And by the way, big thanks to Gabriella. Gabriella Sanchez and my colleagues at the UI for putting this together as well.
Thank you to Sergio and to everybody here at CEPS, at the Justice and Home Affairs Program. So thank you to all of you for being here, for joining us this morning. We are very excited to see so many familiar faces, and of course to be here in Brussels. We welcome, of course, all of you this morning, and of course to all of our speakers who are here in the spirit of building a much needed dialogue when it comes to the treatment of migration facilitation. I'm a research fellow at the Migration Facilitation Research Cluster at the Migration Policy Center at the European University Institute. This cluster is the result of the vision of Luigi Achilli, who is here with us today. About almost 3 years ago, Luigi convened what was an exploratory group that aimed to look closer into the topic of facilitation. Research on smuggling has been around for about 20 years. So what we're going to be talking about is nothing brand new, in a sense. At the same time, the research has been pretty much relegated to the sidelines, and it is still poorly understood as a practice. Our collective goal became then to jumpstart or restart the conversation rather on facilitation flows, and that way assembling a group of researchers from and within communities from around the world who were experiencing migration flows from the ground, and to give a platform to their research. Today, our collective comprises about 60 researchers worldwide who carry out work on the ground, and we are an unbeatable team, I have to say, who reports on day-to-day trends on migration facilitation. And of course, we're very grateful to have today several of them with us in the room. What has distinguished its effort from the beginning has been our hope to bring a very critical take on the conversation on migration facilitation. And to do so, we have been engaging directly with facilitators on the ground. So there's a lot of work that has been carried out in terms of victimization patterns or on the impact of facilitation on migrants. Our concern from the very beginning has been to go into the communities and to reach out to the facilitators themselves and to understand their context, their families, and also the impact of enforcement activities on this dynamics. So together, our backgrounds, which include policy, law enforcement, and education in addition to academia, have allowed us to have access to unique informants and data on mobility, smuggling, the organization and their consequences. We have also been very fortunate to find allies within law enforcement agencies and organizations in several countries. Most recently, for example, we have partnered with UNODC as part of its efforts to bridge academic and enforcement policy. And we are, in fact, working on 2 reports on the impact of smuggling on women, smuggling enforcement on women, and on the myriad of crimes that are related to smuggling and that do have an impact on the human security of migrants along routes around the world. This is also we are, again, very excited to be here, but at the same time, this event is also an opportunity to engage in a self-critique. And that is because while we are very glad to see where these efforts have taken us as a collective, and where perhaps we were having part of this conversation a couple of weeks in Vienna, we believe that we had never had so much access to so much data. There's so many cases, so many case studies that are related to facilitation worldwide. But as academics, we also acknowledge the fact that we have very bad at communicating many of these findings, how we transmit them, how we and also in the ways in which we try to collaborate with the agencies or not. So as academic researchers, we have remained often problematically siloed in and isolated from the discussions on how to connect the findings from the ground and translating them into useful tools for policymakers. So today we're here to jumpstart this conversation with you, a conversation that, once again, is not new by any means, but which needs to be reframed and reconceived and to include more angles and perspectives from even more actors. And I think we would both, as co-organizers, would like to think, to bring all of you into the conversation. What do we do with the data that we have? How can we make our data, our efforts work for you and with you? How can together we find better ways to collaborate that acknowledge the historical, sociocultural, and security dimensions of mobility facilitation? So thank you for coming here this morning and for joining the effort. We are very committed to see the community of critical research on migration facilitation grow, and we are very grateful in that sense for once again, for your presence. A couple of housekeeping points, I guess, to bring up. All speakers are going to have 10 minutes to go over their presentations. So we'll make sure, to keep tags on everybody when it comes to the time. We're very good at that. And after that, we're going to open the conversation, with everybody in the room. And I think that's all I have. So without any further ado, we'll get started with the first panel, which is going to be moderated by my colleague, Sergio Carrera.